Hi everyone, this is Elias Martin of CollectingJapanesePrints.com. Welcome to Woodblock Wednesday, where every Wednesday we get together and discuss Japanese prints, paintings, history, and culture. Today we'll continue the conversation from last week on Western artists working in Asia, or in particular in Japan. These two Woodblock Wednesdays are sort of dedicated to my upcoming exhibition of Western artists working in Asia. I'm really, I'm working on this exhibition and I'm really excited about it. There'll be some really wonderful works available in that exhibition. I keep getting consignments and other works for this exhibition, so I keep moving the exhibition further a little bit. So right now, I think the exhibition will go live mid-October, and hopefully without any other delays. So that's just something to look forward to. You'll hear more about it here, as well as if you're interested in learning more about my website and the gallery, feel free to join on our emailing list. So you could go to collectingjapaneseprints.com and click on email, and you could submit your email. We'll send you information on all our activities. Now for today, I wanted to discuss the work of Clifton Karhu. He's an American artist who traveled to Japan actually as a missionary originally, and he had interest in art, of course, throughout his life, even as a youngster. But he was a missionary and went to Japan to do missionary work, but then fell in love with Japan and sort of abandoned the missionary work and started learning the art of woodblock prints and became a very successful artist. Karhu is kind of an interesting character because he was known to basically live the life of what they say is more Japanese than a Japanese, which means that he in the late 20th century was wearing a full-fledged kimono every single day, and would live it almost like a late 19th century lifestyle. He was a woodblock print carver, printer, and dressed the part. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. But his artwork displays a sensitivity to the Japanese culture. He depicted a lot of scenes in and around of Kyoto. But his technique, his coloration is actually really interesting. It's more of his own style. He had really vivid, bright colors. And so, I have a really interesting combination of a woodblock print, a hanshita, which is the black key block, and the original woodblock to show you today. So, without further ado, let's go to the print cabinet and have a look. So, the first thing we'll discuss, I guess, is the print itself. I'm going to move this over, and this is the print. It's a beautiful scene. We have a lovely half-moon bridge where you have some lanterns, and then you have this beautiful yellow sky. The water is kind of greenish blue, and the design is a circular fan-shaped design that was done. It's basically takes its inspiration from ukiyo-e prints that were produced to be made as fans, and so a lot of prints in this shape were made as fans and taken to the kabuki theater. A lot of the fan prints depict kabuki actors, so it was sort of ephemera in some ways. But Hiroshige also produced fan prints as hokusai, and so Karhu is very much looking back in the ukiyo-e tradition and echoing that shape. It also sort of suggests kind of a window. So we're looking into the window of Karhu's world, where it's very brightly colored and tranquil. You rarely see people in Karhu's prints. He did some portraits, but in his landscapes, he's much like Hasui in many ways. Even Yoshida, when there are people, and there really aren't, when they are, you really don't see them. They're either carrying umbrellas, and so what you see is the umbrella. You don't see the person. And so it reminds me, of Hasui Yoshida, where it's the focus is entirely on the landscape. And if there are any vestiges of human activity, they're used as a means to sort of amplify the landscape itself and not necessarily show the people. Though, as I mentioned, Karhu is known to have produced some portraits. He did some self-portraits. He did portraits of his friends and patrons, even some art dealers in the 70s. So it's interesting that he did do portraits, but this is a quintessential landscape by Karhu, and I think it's quite stunning. This was done in 1977. It's an artist proof. And what I have today is I have the original, and this is a hanchta, which is a key block. So this is the black outline. So if we look at the design, all of the outline that is in black, which is basically, if you can imagine a page out of a coloring book, this is what you have. And obviously you have other blocks that are used to print different colors within this design. But in this case, it's basically a guide to show what the design looks like. And so in this case, Karhu, he shows us the hanchta without any colors, and he actually also adds a signature here. And this was produced intentionally to create a set. So you don't see this signature in the print itself, which means he finished the print, he finished the run, then he recarved the block and printed the hanchta, and it has the signature. So I think that's kind of interesting. And of course, what we have here is the original block. Now, these two are framed, I should point out. They come from a collector who's consigned these pieces to me. And so they've been framed, so you could kind of see the glare off the glass there, but it's in fine shape, and the wood block here is also in fine shape. And I mean, I just want to point out how beautiful this wood block looks. I mean, it's a work of beauty unto itself, honestly. You could see the wood grain in the design itself, which, Karhu and other artists who use these wonderful blocks to carve prints specifically look for blocks of wood with a distinctive wood grain in order to impress that characteristic onto the wood block. And so I think that's kind of cool to be able to see that. And you could kind of see also just the carving around the design, him carving out the image and removing the excess block or the excess wood around the image. I think that's pretty neat. Now, I should point out that on the wood block itself, he also signed it. He carved this little square notch in it with the character Ka, which is Karhu, stands for Karhu, and that is actually different from this signature. So it's interesting. He may have recarved it for this hanchta, or he may have printed a few hanchtas with this signature, or it might be an addition where it's a stamp, but it doesn't look it. It looks to me like it's printed. And he recarved it, and this is the final state of the wood block, which, it's pretty fascinating. So, to have an original wood block by Karhu is quite rare. I never see these. I mean, they're very, very rare. And I think the reason why is in most times, artists wouldn't want to sell their wood blocks because they were afraid that maybe another individual or even a publisher would get their hands on them and then reprint them, especially after their death. And Karhu has passed away. He died fairly recently. And so, there was always that concern. But I think what Karhu ended up doing is he destroyed the color blocks. And by him signing the block like that, that basically, in essence, cancels the edition. And you won't have the print with the K, nor would you have the or the Ka, and you wouldn't have the finished print with all the colors anyway. But I just thought I should point that out. The other thing I should also point out is that for all of you who are interested in the process of making prints, I don't see a kento or a registration notch on here. There usually was a place to put your paper, a little notch to put your paper onto the block so that the print wouldn't skip around. And here I don't see the registration notch, which means that he cut it out. He cut this block out. This block originally was larger, much larger, and the sheet of paper would go directly onto the block, and there would be a registration notch so that the paper wouldn't slip while he was printing the design. But assuming Karhu wanted to present this block as a present to someone, he cut the registration notch away from the block, and that way it's not a fully functioning printing block anymore. So it's more of an aesthetic piece that goes with the print and the hachita. So that's also interesting. And the other thing I'll mention about the block is that he had to sand it down a little bit. There's no traces of pigment on here that I could tell. So the block, probably after being used, I don't know what the edition run in this is. It might be 50. This is an artist proof, so I don't know exactly the final run, but it's probably around 50. After the 50 impressions, he sanded down the surface to bring out the color of the wood and the wood grain. Had we looked at this block in its an original state after being used, you would see the black pigment that was used to print this impression, which is the impression of the key block. So I hope that makes sense. And again, this is the finished print after printing this key block and having a color block carved and printed for every color in this design. So if we count the colors, we can figure out how many blocks were used. But generally speaking, artists reprint colors over and over again to get a certain effect. So, for example, the sky is a really wonderful deep mustard color, but then there's this yellow, a lighter yellow sort of peeking around the bridge. So that tells us that there were at least two printings of the yellow, a lighter yellow and then a stronger yellow that went over it. So he used that printing block for the sky at least twice, if not more. And, we look around the purples and the blues here. It's actually kind of complicated, but there's overprinting of purple over the blue in the background. And so, that's at least a couple blocks there. So, I'm guessing there's at least 12 blocks that were used to print this design, if not more. So, it's kind of interesting to be able to see the finished print, the key block, and of course the original block. It's quite the neat opportunity to be able to see all three. And for those of you who are interested, this set will be available on my website in my upcoming exhibition of Western artists working in Asia, mid-October. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to zoom in so you could look at all three pieces. I'm going to also pick this up and put it in the light so you could kind of see it a little bit better. It's a wood block. Coming back to the Hanchta. Actually, I don't know if I need to pick that up. I could just move my phone across it. Excuse the glare off the glass. It is framed, and there's a glare off this plexi. But you could see how this key block produces this black and white print. Basically, if you could picture a page of a coloring book, in essence, this is what this is. And then, of course, the artist carves subsequent blocks to produce all of the colors that go onto this print. So kind of neat. Not kind of neat, really neat. So yeah, anyway, I think this is a great opportunity to be able to see the printmaking process at work. And be able to see a very rare object. Printing blocks are not something you come across every day, particularly with an artist like Karhu, who is very protective of his work, and not many of these printing blocks exists. And this clearly was put together by the artist to present to a family friend, someone very dear to him, in order to put this together like this. So I think this is a very rare and wonderful opportunity to see this collection. Well, I hope you enjoyed having a sneak peek into my upcoming exhibition. Those works are really rare, wonderful pieces. And, so I think this gives you a good sense of what's coming up ahead on my website. So if you want to keep tabs on what is happening on the site, I encourage you to join our email list. At collectingjapaneseprints.com, just click above where it says contact us or email list, and we'll add you to it. And of course, there's a lot of other things going on the site. There's a large bookstore with wonderful books for collectors or scholars who want to learn more about Japanese prints and painting. So please have a look there as well. And so I think we'll continue the conversation of Western artists working in Japan. And next week I'll present something else that I find to be neat. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next week then. Thank you for joining me. See you soon. Bye.